This is the story of a man who was killed and became reincarnated as a sword and wanted to become the strongest weapon, and a slave girl who lost her family and wanted to become the strongest hero. The main character, who has no name, is killed by Truck-kun. Damn, that is the fastest death in all of anime. He is reincarnated as an epic sword in a different world, and is mounted on a pedestal. He hears a voice telling him that he is in for one hell of a time. The voice disappears and the sword thinks he was just hallucinating. The sword realizes that he has overpowered abilities because he is in an isekai, and sees the abilities he has been given. Goblins come to the sword and try to draw him out of his pedestal, but this angers him. He uses his telekinesis ability to slay them immediately. When he does this, he crushes a crystal inside of them and absorbs its power. The sword opens up his menu to see his stats, noticing he's accumulated skill slots and new skills after killing them. A slave cat girl works with a group of slaves under the orders of their master and wishes to one day become stronger to break free. The sword uses his telekinesis ability to fly in the air for short bursts because his MP limits him from doing it forever. The sword then kills an air insect and he gets himself the ability called float. This allows him to fly even higher and for longer periods. The sword kills a centipede and gets 10 evolution points. He uses 5 skill points to improve MP1 and improve attack 1 5 times. He's excited as he's looking to meet the person who will one day wield him. That night, the sword finds a goblin nest and slays the ones inside and outside, leveling up in the process. Inside the deepest part of the cave, the sword uses stealth, locating the goblin king and kills him. His sword mastery levels up to level 3. The black girl attempts to protect another slave by beating one of their overseers, but she is ordered to stand down. She is scolded and isn't allowed dinner that night. The next day, the cat girl tries to fight against her overseer again, but isn't able to do anything as she is powerless. Later, they are put onto a wagon and ride it through a dark forest, where the cat girl promises to herself that she will become stronger and evolve. The sword realizes that the further he is away from the center of where he spawned, the stronger the type of monsters he encounters. It is divided into areas, the highest being the 5th one out. He's only been able to fight against level 4 monsters so far. He builds up the confidence and fights against an Area 5 boss, a gluttonous slime, and defeats it using his telekinesis, catapult, and wind bullet abilities. He receives 30 experience points, including instant regeneration. The sword also obtains a pocket dimension and uses it to store his belongings. Eventually, the sword faces off against the doppel snake and the blast turtle, tyrant saber tiger, and destroys all of them. After destroying them, the sword evolves again and heads into the plains beyond Area 5. He has to take a break to regenerate his flying ability, but upon landing, he is unable to get back up. He is stuck in the ground and can't move at all because the ground sucks his mana. A day passes by, then a week, then an entire month, but still no one is there to help him.
It's an evil world we live in.
Meanwhile, a giant 2-headed bear attacks the wagon the black cat girl was on. It destroys the wagon and kills a lot of people, and the slave girl attempts to attack the bear, but is unable to do anything. Wishing for more power, she sees the sword, and he calls her out. He tells her that he will help her defeat the bear. She picks up the sword and the slave trader attempts to take the sword from her, but the sword defends the cat girl and she is finally freed. They kill the bear together, and she agrees to become the wielder of the sword to evolve, as no other black cat has evolved before. The sword thinks this wielder has a good backstory and will have a good development arc. The black cat girl introduces herself as Fian, but the sword calls her Fran instead. The sword doesn't have a name, so Fran decides to call him Teacher as he will be making her stronger. The sword loves this name. As Fran and Teacher sleep next to each other on a wagon to a city, they get surrounded by a horde of goblins and destroy them immediately. Fran uses water magic to clean herself and the Teacher. As they are traveling on the wagon again, the wagon driver asks Fran what level of adventurer she is. Fran has no clue what any of that means, so he explains to her that there are levels of monsters and adventurers, going from G rank to S rank, with S being the highest. If she wishes to become the highest rank possible, she will need to join a guild and farm monster materials for money. The goblin leader that managed to escape Fran returns to its base, where a goblin shaman summons various species of goblins, and they start to mutate. As they arrive in the town, Fran heads to find the guild area, and Teacher identifies all the weapons, noticing all their attacks are much stronger than him. Fran tells Teacher not to worry as he is the greatest sword ever, and that makes him happy. At the guild, the receptionist Nell struggles to keep up her smiling expression while dealing with awful adventurers. Nell is approached by Fran and asks her to register as an adventurer. Nell thinks that Fran may be a bit young, but allows her to take a mock fight. They enter an arena where Donadron introduces himself to Fran with his loud voice. Teacher uses Identify on Donadron and realizes he is extremely strong. The fight begins and Fran has trouble defending herself against his attacks. So Teacher casts support buffs to assist her. With the buffs, she clashes against him until she is able to finish off the fight with a Dragon Fang attack. She passed the exam. She walks with Donadron to meet the guild master, Klimt, in his office. Klimt tries to use Identify on Fran, but Teacher negates his ability using Identify protection. He asks her where she learned her sword skills, but she refuses to answer. He tells her that she has passed the test. Teacher uses Identify on Klimt and realizes he is very strong. They enter a cave where there is a large crystal in the room. Fran records her mana signature on the crystal and has a multitude of classes that she can choose from, which is the first time Nell has seen this. She picks Spellsword to complement Teacher's abilities. Once that is settled, Nell hands Fran her guild card. To get money, Teacher gives Nell his monster materials and they get 2 million yen worth of gold. A couple of douchebags attempt to steal the money from Fran, but she destroys them in their place. A dwarf notices her sword skill and notices that the sword she's carrying is an intelligent weapon. As they are walking outside, the dwarf approaches her and asks her to visit his shop for gear as he is impressed by her power. Teacher uses Identify on him and notices he is very skilled, and hears other guys talking about how great his equipment is. Teacher notices that his swords are also much stronger than him, so he wants to investigate. Garrus, however, tells Fran that her sword is much stronger than theirs, as it is an intelligent sword and knew this by using his magical eye. He shows Teacher that he can become much stronger by combining his mana with his attack, to boost his attack and make it 5 times stronger than any of the other swords. Garrus explains to Teacher that the gods are able to forge divine blades, but Teacher doesn't happen to be one of them. The only blade Garrus has ever seen is Ignis, and it is an extremely strong blade. Teacher asks Garrus to make him a sheath, and Garrus offers to make it for him for free. Teacher also decides to give Garrus a bunch of his materials from C and D rank monsters to forge them the best possible armor, and will pay him 1.5 million yen for his troubles. When leaving the place, they decide to go to other shops in the town and decide to even get clothes for Fran. From there, they decide to go to the spice shop and find a lot of different cooking utensils and things to eat. That night, they finally get their first room, and Fran is delighted to see this. She has never had an actual room before, so she is extremely happy that she has met Teacher. She hugs Teacher and says that her life has been so much better since she met him, and wishes for them to never be separated. The next day they enjoy delicious food together and Teacher is happy that he has been reincarnated. They go into the jungle to collect herbs and spices, and Teacher explains that these tedious parts are necessary for being an adventurer. They hear screaming in the distance and run towards it. They find a group of adventurers being raided by goblins and decide to step in to help them. Fran slashes against the enemies and uses her magical abilities to kill them. She then heals the adventurers and they warn her that a goblin stampede may be near. There have been so many goblins recently, and they are worried about this. Fran enters the jungle and sees there to be more goblins, and she takes them one by one. She struggles, but is determined to battle them to become stronger. Teacher realizes that he shouldn't attempt to stop Fran, but rather to support her as she will never back down from wishing to help everyone. They find a cave at the end of the goblin horde, and the adventurers come and tell her that it is likely a dungeon since it wasn't here last month. They visit the guildmaster and inform him of their findings, and they prepare a party to fight against the goblin stampede. He explains that goblin stampedes are started by a goblin king and goblin queen reproducing to make many goblins, and the ones they were just fighting are likely much weaker than the stronger goblins that will come soon. Fran is also promoted to F rank from G rank because of how courageous and strong she is. They visit Garrus's shop and he gives them Teacher's sheath, and it can be opened just by using his telekinetic ability. Later that night, Teacher notices that Fran is extremely tired and he wishes to have her fall asleep. However, she refuses and decides that they need to shower before they go to sleep as they have been dirty from killing all the goblins. They enter the showering area and Nell is also there and yells at her for bringing her sword in. They have dinner together and Nell begins to explain the history of this world. There were 10 gods, but the god of war fell to evil, so they destroyed him into small pieces. The god of chaos creates dungeons using those pieces and rewards those who finish the dungeon. It can be seen as a blessing. Nell, however, is too tired to try to understand this and falls asleep. The next day, they are together with a huge group of adventurers. Donadron addresses the huge group by telling them that they will attempt to destroy this stampede before it begins. There are likely many goblins inside, so they will need to be careful. Their main goal is to kill the goblin king and queen, and then defeat the dungeon master. He asks them to set up a temporary camp next to the dungeon, but the goblins decide to start running out. They begin attacking the adventurers, rather than sticking together as they had planned. They begin to be separated and get killed one by the goblins. Teacher tells Fran to begin helping the others. Fran decides to run straight into the danger without a fear for surviving. The goblins, however, begin avoiding her as it is likely they are fearing her because of her goblin slayer abilities. This ability allows her to look like a demon to the goblins. As she is about to reach the entrance, Fran notices that a hobgoblin is about to kill an adventurer, so she decides to save him. However, the entrance is blocked off because of the ongoing fight, so Fran uses an advanced skill named Midair Jump which Teacher acquired from the Tyrant Saber Tiger. The other adventurers notice that this is an extremely high-level skill, not one that F rank should be able to use. Once she is above everyone else, she uses Tri-Explosion to take down a huge number of enemies, clearing the way for her companions. She then goes on to kill more goblins using her Sonic Wave technique. She notices that there is a large number of goblins crammed at the entrance to prevent her from progressing forward. Teacher uses his flame magic flare blast to get rid of almost all of them. They begin running inside the dungeon, leaving the remaining goblins to the other adventurers. The others in the army follow after her. Teacher tells her that they have a return feather if things ever escalate, and Fran tells him that she will go as deep as she can manage. They face goblins, and Fran begins slashing at them, destroying their crystals and storing them in Teacher's pocket dimension. She continues charging forward and attacking only the goblins with crystals to level up. Teacher congratulates her for doing good, and it makes her happy. A horde of goblins approaches them, but he realizes they may be too many to deal with. Teacher uses split thinking and then unleashes 2 fire javelins that annihilates the entire field. They rush in deeper, and 2 goblins begin running back towards their base. They see the cavern and realize they will find the dungeon master soon. They approach a group of strong goblins, and Teacher destroys them. Fran calls him a kill stealer and wonders if they have now cleared the dungeon. Teacher tells her that he would expect the dungeon master to put up more resistance, but then they finally approach a red door. They enter and the door closes behind them. A swarm of flies begin to attack them, and they all have crystals. Fran begins killing all of them, leveling up in the meantime. Reinforcements begin approaching, and their leader finally approaches. Teacher releases Tri-Explosion, destroying all of them in their place. The announcer says that Fran has reached level 17, and they approach the final door. A magic aura comes from inside, and they feel it in their bones. Teacher realizes that it may be on the level of the gluttonous slime, a C rank. Teacher gives Fran buffs, helping her resist all the energy that may come at her. He then boosts her senses and reflexes, and all her other physical abilities. Finally, he gives her regeneration, and he tells her that he will make her curry once they defeat this boss. Fran is excited and happy, and promises that she won't die. They enter the gates and are ready to enter the final battle. Inside, they see a demon waiting for them. Teacher realizes that this guy is the source of all this power, and thinks that he can't be the dungeon master. He appears to be a greater demon with stats that are higher than 1000. The first time Teacher has seen this. He is the first B rank monster he's seen, and he's able to destroy cities alone. A smaller goblin commands him to stop messing around, and they realize that this one is the dungeon master, even though he appears to be extremely weak. The dungeon master keeps talking, but the demon tells him to shut up, and Teacher infuses 500 mana points in his blade. The demon starts attacking against Fran, and teacher realizes that he has also infused his sword with his mana points to increase his damage. Fran rushes forward to attack the demon, but he parries her attacks and she barely dodges. She casts Aura Blade, which causes his sword to go flying. Fran goes in for the attack, but teacher realizes it's a trap and the demon gets his sword back to block her off. He disappears from the field, appearing behind her and slashing her arms off. The demon is ready to kill her, but teacher uses split thinking and blocks him off, casting Fire Wall. Fran is in pain and crying, but teacher reattaches her arms and heals her. The demon is impressed by her abilities, and teacher tells her to relax and that she's got this. They regroup and are ready to attack again. Teacher realizes that he appeared in their blind spots, and he disappears again and appears behind them. Teacher begins to wonder how he keeps disappearing, but then realizes that it must be from their shadows. She jumps upwards and launches a sonic wave towards him. The demon releases a darkness blast, sending Fran crashing down. Teacher realizes that they're in a very bad position, and that they're lucky he's just playing with his food. Teacher says that they will use the return feather if necessary, but Fran rushes forward and keeps attacking him. She wants to try eating curry as much as possible. They keep clashing against one another, but the demon is never scratched, so he decides that he will get rid of her sword mastery. A purple hand comes and phases through Fran. He tells her that he now took her sword mastery for himself, so now Fran has no ability to defeat him. Will Fran survive, or will she die against this demon? If you blow this video up, I will upload the next part for you.